Please refrain from any harassment or harm towards individuals featured in this video. All content is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Enjoy the following presentation.
The oldest and most quoted use of the word furry in respect to the furry fandom and anthropomorphic creatures was in 1980 at the World Science Fiction Convention in Boston. When it comes to the internet, the oldest remnant of furries was from an archived Usenet article titled "What is a Furry?" in 1989. This event was the spark of the furry community and the internet colliding, bringing us a well-documented and very detailed fandom that is extremely active to this very day. The first YouTube video uploaded by a furry was on March 26, 2006, titled "Furry Fun in the Snow" by Loki Dragon. The video showcased him skiing down a mountain in a fursuit, along with other pictures of him enjoying the snowy weather, with the song "I'm Not Listening Anymore" by Papa Roach playing in the background. The most interesting thing to note is the amount of views and comments, being at 14,000 views and 14 comments. This showed that there was an active community, because to pull numbers like those in 2006 was an impressive feat to accomplish on a small obscure channel. Content on the furry side of YouTube was shifting towards furry rave videos, which was a slideshow that showcased furry artwork while club music was playing in the background. This was an expected turn, as other fandoms such as My Little Pony or anime were going in the same direction. You might recognize PMVs or AMVs, where PMVs were pony music videos which took clips from the show and put music over it, and AMVs were the same but with anime clips instead. Later, there was an unexpected event that occurred. Many news stations and corporate channels were covering the existence of furries, such as NBC News, Dr. Phil, and National Geographic making videos about them. BuzzFeed also wrote an article at the time, saying if furries were really so bad. These are just a few examples of the furry notoriety during the time. Furries continued with internet content at the time, such as animations or showcasing their time being at conventions via vlogs. Instead of delving more into the history of furries, let's move on to examining the shift of perspective of furries that occurred in the 2010s. Also, fun fact before moving on, did you know the 100 millionth post on 4chan was a furry artwork titled "A Little R&R" by Stripe? I thought that was hilarious. Cringe compilations existed for many years, with the notable one being uploaded by Crobat titled "Most Awkward Moments at Minecon 2013. Though these cringe videos existed for a long time and got sizable views, furries were typically not the sole target. Rather, it was a compilation of videos scattered throughout the internet that were picked for people to laugh and gawk at. That was until around 2016, when furry cringe compilations were reaching millions of views. This made the community a punching bag and an easy target. Anywhere you would go on the internet, Reddit, YouTube, message boards, you name it, and furry cringe was to be there. Of course, other communities got hit as well, but it seemed as though furries got hit the hardest. Many people wanted them to leave, go get help, or even wanted to them. Animations and compilations where furries were sprouting, with comments underneath stating anti-furry propaganda. Channels and subreddits committed to hating furries were gaining traction as well. It seems as though people thought the fandom was weird, and that is where the hate was stemming from, rather than a specific incident created by the furries. Internet hate is nothing new though. Even for the earliest days on the internet existing, there was always someone disagreeing with another about some menial topic. But what happens when a disagreement goes too far? What happens when the hatred is too much, and someone feels that they need to take it further than an online dispute?
Hotel guests donning animal costumes of all shapes and sizes were forced out onto the streets after a chlorine gas leak forced an evacuation of the Hyatt Regency O'Hare early Sunday morning.
There might have been a lot of hate against the community, but nobody expected violence to occur. That was until around midnight on December 7th, 2014 in Rosemont, Illinois during the Midwest Fur Fest convention. There was a chlorine gas leak incident at the Hyatt Hotel, which left 19 people hospitalized after feeling nauseous and dizzy. A bottle containing concentrated chlorine was found to be broken on the ground, which is thought to be intentional. Luckily, no deaths occurred, though something frightening happened soon after. The suspect was never caught. Interviews with staff of the Hyatt and local businesses were conducted, and a police investigation was organized. There was no conclusive leads into who orchestrated the attack. Though an attack on furries was hard on the community, they were able to bind together and make the most on the situation, praising that nobody died and everybody was able to make it home. This happy ending might have strengthened the fandom for a bit, but worse news was around the corner. 2017 was a horrible year for the furry community. It seemed that news stories were covering quite a few awful acts committed by furries. In 2017, news broke out about a pedophile ring where 5 men were arrested. I don't want to go into too much detail, but the acts committed were heinous and disgusting. One of the worst parts was one of the men were a child as young as 2 or 3 years old. Soon after, still in 2017, another article came out about a nasty problem within the community. Lee Miller, an at the time 29-year-old, showed up to a convention wearing an armband that was similar to the armbands worn by the Nazi Party in World War II. Being interviewed, he stated that there were no connections, and simply, it was for a group he was a part of called the Furry Raiders. It did not help that his fursona was named Foxler. Though this information seems bad, it doesn't even scratch the surface. The Furry Raiders were trying to groom and manipulate children into joining their cult. In 2019, Lee was arrested for child sex charges. There were 3 charges against him in relation to sexual acts with a child and enticement of a child. Jacob Kovar, or his alias Sneps, was also a part of this story. He groomed kids as well as committed sexual acts against them. He was also charged for intimidating a witness to not come public about the threats that another member of the Furry Raiders made, which were that they were supposedly bringing a gun to the RMFC convention. In February of 2020, Jacob Kovard had more charges brought against him when tampering with the case of Lee Miller. I was unable to find more information about court dates and the trial's conclusion, as it seems most of the information is private, even 3 years later. The last case is a more recent topic that negatively affected the furry community, was when a furry with the online alias Sappho admitted to being a zoo.
And I want to clear the air and say that, for the record, I am a zoo. You did not mishear that. I am a zoo.
Sappho was known for being a hypnotist in the furry VR community. Though I don't want to go into their full backstory since it was covered many times, the one point that is brought up was the fact that they were a zoo. More interestingly, they confessed his secret on camera, which had a lot of widespread outcry from within and outside the community. This put a mark on the back of the furry fandom as a whole, with a member coming out publicly about being a zoo. This made people who hated furries only worse. The target was of course increased with people covering the story, such as Turkey Tom, Lanza, and Harley TBS. This is no fault towards them since it was an interesting story, but the fandom was again at rock bottom with constant hate being sent their way. Though there were horrible events that took place, only covering the bad news about a community did not sit right with me. So let's go over some of the good news that the community was able to accomplish. First, there was a rumor about furries in school using a litter box in the bathroom. People stated the furries identified as cats, thus required a litter box. Bruce Bostelman, Nebraska Republican lawmaker, stated, and I quote, "School children dress up as animals, cats or dogs, during the school day. They meow and they bark, and now schools are wanting to put litter boxes in the schools for these children to use," unquote. In March of 2022, he stated that the allegations were false because the legislators' education committee stepped in and stated that Mr. Bostelman's claims were false and no litter boxes were ever requested. So much is placed in the bathroom of a public school. Though this did not quell the public from scrutinizing the fandom, it still helped that the legislators' education committee was able to deny the claims and put the issue to rest. In March of 2016, Vancouver, a Canadian furry convention, was being held at the Executive Airport Plaza Hotel in Richmond, British Columbia, Canada. It just so happened that Syrian refugees were being housed in the same hotel. This was concern at first, as staff thought that the large animal costumes would be too much of a shock, but it turns out the kids loved it. They saw the furries as cartoons come to life, with their bright colors and extroverted personality. The staff and the Canadian government were very pleased about the entire ordeal, and were glad there was something there to distract from the recent situation. At the start of January in 2020, a disturbing video was shown of 2 furries beating a citizen on the sidewalk. Though there is a positive backstory to this. It turns out that the man was being beaten by furries was an abuser who was previously hitting his girlfriend. It was reported that he kept striking her as hard as he can and hit her over 10 times. The furries then rushed over and beat the man to the ground until he was pulled away from the beating that he so rightfully deserved. One of the furries stated, quote, "Even though we're wearing animal costumes, we've got some humanity as well. It's just a natural thing to want to help someone in need." The boyfriend, 22-year-old Dmitry Hardnet, was arrested and sentenced to jail time for domestic abuse. Finally, to end off on a bit more lighthearted note, Cameron Best, known online as Meeps Kitten, is a Blue Origin astronaut that is the youngest American in space at 23 years old, with the previous youngest being 29. Not only that, but they were the first pansexual in space and the first furry in space. This was an incredible feat for the furry community and history as a whole that I feel deserves much recognition and respect. In the end, there are good and bad parts to the community, just like with any other community or fandom out there. The issue stems from individuals committing acts that bring the rest of the community down that did not deserve it. Overall, it is a large group of people that have a like-minded interest, sharing experiences, and enjoying the company of those around them. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.